And we are live. Welcome to the Authenticity Code Masterclass. I'm Brad Powell, and I just want to introduce what we're doing today. We are, first of all, I'm thawing out from like below 20 degrees in Boston area. I'd love to hear. I hear that there are some people out in the middle of the country who are even colder. So if that's you, I hope you're staying warm. And yeah, let's jump in and do this. So the whole idea behind this masterclass, and first of all, this is the first presentation of these ideas, and Eva and I are super excited to share this. I want to give full credit to her because the Authenticity Code is her brainstorm. She actually authored the code, and the idea behind it is that more than ever these days, it's more important for us as business people to show up as human beings. And if we want to connect with the people that we're here to serve, if we want to connect with the folks who are going to be collaborating with us around the change that we are trying to bring to the world, we need to make a connection with those folks that is very genuine and really move away from what has been a lot of old school way of the business world dealing with the real world. So let us all try and be more in the real world. And so there's going to be two parts to this. Eva's going to come on and share her part of the presentation. We're actually going to work through your code so that you can actually redefine and find out more about like what's inside of you, which is going to resonate with the people who you want to connect with. And then, of course, once you get there, once you get to that place where you understand, like, this is who I am, this is the part that makes me super unique and special, you want to be able to move to a place where you're now going to make that connection, which involves showing up and being seen in the world. And of course, my whole thing is with video. So right now, one of the easiest ways to do that, to make that connection at scale in a large way, is by using video. And so we're going to move in the second part of this into, well, how do you do that and how do you get there and how do you remove a bunch of the daunting parts that seem to make showing up in the world so difficult. So with that, I am going to bring Eva on and say, click the right button. Here we are. Hey, Eva.
Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay.
I think I can. I'm seeing a couple of things in the chat here. It's really great to see folks showing up. Shepard is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Cold, the Pat Man is from Cold, Iowa. Yeah, man. I hear it's really cold out there.
So, yeah, it would be great if people told me, like maybe if they have a business or what they do or their role or why they're here, or what they're looking to get out of it. That would be great info for me just so I can like cater the presentation to more specific to your needs. So
yeah, okay. Well, I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay.
And you can take it away, and then I'll chime in every now and then as things occur to me. But for the most part, I'm going to be in the background looking at the chat and managing stuff.
All right, great. So I'm going to start my presentation here. Let's see. I'm presenting my slides. Okay. So you guys are here, your brave souls, to find out about this word authenticity. So it was my inspiration came because it's actually the word of the year from Merriam-Webster, and it's been used a lot and misused, and we've heard it. It's been overused. And so when I had the inspiration to do this, I really dug deep into it, and I really fell in love with this word. And I'm so excited to share with you guys just this journey of authenticity and what it really means. So a little bit about me. I have a business called Brand From Within. I've been in corporate America. I've been in branding and marketing, but my heart is with entrepreneurs. I just come alive whenever I hear your idea or a dream. And my thing is I connect the dots and help you kind of package everything together, and most of all, bring out your personality. And so for me, the personality wasn't anything I really um, focused on, but my story is, when I had to show up for my business, I was like, who am I? I mean, how do I show up? Like it was the weirdest thing, where when I had to get on video or speaking, I just wasn't really sure. And so that really took me into a deep dive. And I'll be sharing with you in the code into a lot of discovering who I am and kind of um, packing it all together again. So I believe that everybody's a gifted genius in the world and has something amazing to offer. So my mission is always to help you do that. So what we're going to cover today are just some of the myths around authenticity, what it is, and how it can help us in our business. And I'm going to explain to you this exciting code. There are 4 elements to it, and each person, I'm going to go through it, and you'll be able to kind of jot down in your notes, if you got the workbook, what your thoughts are. And then we're going to talk about this experiment that we're going to do, and then expression. So Brad's going to talk about video, and it just being the most impactful form of marketing, especially if you can really connect with your customer through video. So authenticity, I looked it up, and it is, at the essence, it's being true to who you are, your spirit. It's being genuine. So, it's the word of the year, because I think times are changing and shifting, and people's almost values and priorities are changing, and we want a life that's more true to who we are. So, what is who we are? So my people think it's an obvious thing that you should know, but it's actually one of the hardest questions. And it's not anything that we can really answer. So I'm going to be explaining a little bit more about my point of view there. And for me, I feel like authenticity is just to author your own life, to figure out what fulfills you, and go after it. And that is kind of the journey of life. And it's to me, that's what I'm talking about when I say experiment, because we don't really know until we try things on. So how can we know who we are or be authentic if it's a kind of a trial and error thing? So there's lots of different contexts to authenticity. That's one of them, in terms of just being true to your life. But there's also the perception or the persona of being authentic, and what that means. And so one of the things that's hard is that it's been misused so much, and people have used it as, oh, I'm just being authentic, when they're trying to make an excuse for being a jerk, or I think in marketing, there's been a lot of overuse in the word. And I think there was that whole pay to be you movement that really ruined the word. But, and then underneath, in terms of the definition, there is just a lot of layers to unpack to find what is true to you in your authentic life. So we're going to be talking about those 2 things, because there's the and that's why I wanted to know a little bit more about what you guys wanted to get out of it, because it could be, how do I show up on camera more authentically or naturally, or the authenticity as in connecting to your voice, your authentic voice. And we're going to cover that, or figuring out, what is authentic to my life. So all of that we're going to cover. But I would love to hear in the chat, when you guys think of the word authentic, what does it mean to you? And a little bit about, what you're wanting to get out of this. And especially for your business, if you're here for business or if you're here for personal reasons. And I'm taking this word and this presentation as an opportunity to really for us to kind of get in alignment with who we are, kind of this deep dive. And I'm going to be showing you four very like concrete elements that will help you. I think a lot of it is, people can talk about it. Like you talk about it with your therapist and it's very vague, but these are things that are part of the human psychology. We're more alike than we are different. And it's been really helpful for me to be able to experiment with some of these different things I'm going to be talking about. And also it's aspirational. So part of who we are is also who we want to be, who we aspire to be. And I think that's where this word authenticity is not like I'm authentic or I'm not. It's we're all equally authentic. We all have the same intentions, and it's a journey. And so my question was, if we're growth oriented and we want to learn, which you guys are here, so I'm sure you do, how are we ever truly authentic? And that's the question I had to ask myself. If we're constantly evolving and growing, are we really it? And so for me, I came up with this slide, and it's this like we align ourselves and with what we want or what's true to us. And then if we have a growth mindset, we always are trying to aspire, right? As we move on in our journey of life. And so I feel like it's this journey of growth, this evolvement of alignment and then aspiration, alignment and aspiration. And so I'm going to show you how all of this is connected to your business, to your brand. And if you're here for business, creating an aspirational brand, which is what I talk about, and connecting all the dots to it. So, and the four elements are overlapping. And so you're going to really get a sense of a consistent theme. So like I said, authenticity is not just who we are, but who we aspire to be. And it's not, like I said, it's not I'm authentic or I'm not authentic. And if we have a growth mindset, it should always be kind of evolving. But saying that, there are elements that are true and constant to us. They don't change that much. Sometimes the context changes a little as our priorities in life change and as we grow. But in the essence, we were born with how we are for a reason, and everybody is different. There's no anybody that's the same. So that's what I'm going to be covering today. And just to get into it in relation to marketing, because I know a lot of you are business owners, you could be coaches. What sets apart like iconic brands from others are that they're just love. Like there's some brands that you just love. And at the bottom of this is authenticity. So they know how to be human. And we we're just wired that way. As humans, we want to make connections. So it's Nike does a great job of this, obviously, and you notice that they tie athletes to them because they want to humanize their brand. And so these corporations are not humans, and they're able to utilize what I'm going to be sharing with you guys, because they know about human behavior. They know that people make decisions based on emotions and aspirational things. So once you have the basic needs met, it's really above that. And so that's one of the things, if you're marketing, will kind of put you above the noise, above marketing, when you have an aspirational brand. And that's really what motivates people. So 60 to 95% of purchase decisions are made on an unconscious emotional level. So the big corporations know this. That's why we consume so much in this world. So they're doing it unconsciously, and because they understand this. And so that's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. So the first letter is for archetypes. So you guys might be familiar with archetypes. If not, they are basically a inherited way of thinking, symbol metaphors that we associate certain truths with that cross culture and time. And so there's, I'm going to go over 12 main ones. And so you'll see how these archetypes are relevant in all the brands have certain archetypes. And because we as humans crave a human to human connection. And so that's how they do that. And as entrepreneurs, you are a human. So you're able to take advantage of it much more than they can. And so this can help you like get ideas for imagery on your website, your colors, your voice. And basically what it does is, as humans, we're constantly changing, and we're in a very distracted world. And with marketing and branding, you have to be consistent. And so thinking of your archetypes is that kind of container to help you step into this like authentic archetype that you are, as a reminder, because we all wake up in a crappy mood and we're not consistent. And consistency, there's a stat that's consistent brands are like consistency in business makes like 30 or 40% more revenue just by being consistent. So this is a shortcut to emotion, and I'm going to be sharing with you 4 different themes and 12 different archetypes. So there's all the 12 archetypes are grouped, have 4 different goals or themes: seeking a better world, stability, structure, belonging. I'm going to go kind of quick through this because I know we're kind of running out of time. I have more trainings on this, but I just wanted to give you a sense of, hopefully you can see this, that most brands have a mix of 1 or 2 archetypes, and you are a primary archetype. So there are quizzes for this, assessments, but the problem is with those, it's your perception, right? So your perception can't take the test for you. So you don't really know what vibe you're giving off. And so each one of these archetypes, I'm hoping that you guys can see this, this slide pretty well, have different essences to them. So the innocent is the first theme, is like seeking a better world, seeking paradise through seeing the good in things, purity. The explorer is about going out and seeking the world. The luminary, the sage, is going in and through wisdom and understanding, getting himself or her to a better place. So there's many, like Google is a luminary, North Face is an explorer, like Dove is innocent. So you'll see how each one of these brands embody a totally different type of feel based on these archetypes. So the second one is making an impact. There's the hero, the outlaw, the magician. So these are all different ways of reaching this goal. And the magician is a lot of healers or intuitive people. It's a powerful archetype. There's the outlaw, that's like the rebel. A lot of the disruptor industries are this. The hero is obviously about self-sacrifice and grit and pain to get to a better world, like Nike. So you can see how, depending on like what the brand wants to represent or who you are, you have these different types of personas, so and different values and different metaphors that you could use. So there's the one that's about building a connection. If you are the funny guy and you want to communicate something through humor, or the everyman that just believes that everybody's the same and that we all should treat each other with respect, very humble, to the lover that is really passionate and a lover of beauty. So you can see here that there's there's 12 main ones, and this one is provide support and structure. So a creator, I'm part of a creator, provides support for people to create their business. Caretaker, nurturer, they do that through support and emotional support. And then there's the ruler, who provides structure in much more of a controlled way. So you can see that, like, I'm sure you guys all resonate with one or two of them. And there's a lot in archetypes that give us clues about imagery, colors, fonts, and all kinds of things. And so there's, in typically in corporations, they think, oh, I'm going to figure out what my customers need in terms of the archetype they need. And then they try to embody that. And that is actually not authentic, especially if you are the person behind the brand, you're the entrepreneur, because if what they need are, like, say, you're good at giving structure and you're more of a ruler archetype, and your audience is needing something more of a nurturer, that really wouldn't be a fit. So I feel like if you're just authentic, it simplifies business a lot. We obsess about this: who is our ideal client, who is that person. And as long as we have a good sense of the problem and the transformation that they're seeking, when you can express your archetype and through certain values and metaphors, your ideal people that resonate with you will be drawn to you. And that's what they call brands that are in demand or that pull people in. So expressing as a entrepreneur, solopreneur, it's important to have a good match of your customer to your archetype and stand out with that, because that, at the end of the day, is really going to connect. Like, I connect with a lot of people that are rebels or explore, because I have a little bit of that in me. I have a little bit of the sage and creator, so I'm naturally gravitated towards that. So in terms of an archetype, I'm not going to get too much into this because we have like 3 more elements to go. You want to think about those questions. What do you do, and how would you want to connect with your customer? So you can see archetypes are very, not any archetype is the same. And within that, everybody's going to have their nuance, their individual point of view, and how they go about expressing it. So the next one is you. So universal themes. So this is really powerful now. And this is based on story. So in storytelling or in movies, there is a universal theme. So that's kind of the lesson of the story. And if you look at good movies, they all have a very cohesive universal theme. They're not all over the place. And you have one for your business and your life. And so all of your marketing, all the pieces are contributing to this beautiful narrative and story. And I'm going to go through 7 story types really quickly. You're welcome to go through this on your own, but you're going to see one of these stories in your business. So this is about the underdog. It's the David and Goliath story. So you conquered something huge and overcame fear. And this is what your clients need too. The quest. You're on this journey, maybe a quest to climb up the corporate ladder or quest to be successful. The journey and the return, this is being thrown into an unfortunate circumstances and having to come back. Maybe you got a divorce, or now you have to, return back to how you were before. Whatever it is, there's certain themes that we have in our business, and when you can think of your marketing content and all the pieces in this way, it really kind of makes it cohesive and focused. So then there's rags to riches. There's the comedy, and this is really about clarity and communications, um, being misunderstood. Think of Midnight Summer's Dream. For Rags to Riches, think Cinderella. The tragedy. This is Romeo and Juliet, and Rebirth. So Rebirth is about reinvention. So for me, I one of my beliefs is that we're constantly creating and recreating ourselves. So this is a theme in my business, and something that keeps me consistent to a central belief, and way of thinking that I have in my business. So we're constantly evolving, creating and recreating, and evolving. Um, and our brains are wired for stories. So especially nowadays, it actually activates a different part of our brain, and we remember stories. And when we tell a good story, that person actually makes it you feel like it's happening to you. So I think you guys have always all experienced a good story where you you put yourself in their shoes. So that's how knowing your theme and being a good storyteller will do for you. And there's, the lesson is really the theme. What did you learn from it? So it could be a lesson about love or misunderstandings or whatever the lesson was. So the there's the and that lesson that you learn, you're kind of like the catalyst for your customers. So a lot about storytelling. And so central theme, archetype, and now we have T for talent. So you can see that like I took the 4 letters of A, U, T, and then H is going to be the last one. So T has to do with your natural born gifts. And there's a lot of data that we were all born as genius as kids, and then as we grow up, hardly any adults test as genius, and there's lots of different types of intelligences as well. This is a great book. I just wanted to give an example. It's not definitely an IQ or math and science thing. So if you can find your natural gift and combine two, it really helps you stand out, and it helps you be more productive. Strengths Finder says if you know your natural born strengths, you're 10 times more productive. So, really making sure that your business is taking advantage of your natural born gifts, because you're making more of an impact on the world. And so you want to ask yourself, am I utilizing my gifts in my business? And, maybe some of the other things that aren't your gifts, maybe you can outsource. So you want to make sure you want to be authentic and true to how your gifts that you were born with. Finally, H is for honor, and this to me is one of the most important things. And this is basically what values you most honor in your life, and um, and we've all seen companies talk about like core values and our personal values, and it's it's a great exercise to go through, just not even in your life, but also in marketing. I mean, Steve Jobs has a good video where he basically says marketing is values and what you believe in. And people actually don't really buy people, they buy what you believe in. And that's really, really strong. I feel like we've met people before where we were aligned in what we believe, and it doesn't even really matter what they're selling. So you know expressing your values and integrating it into your business, into how you operate, is so important and a great way to stand out and be authentic. So you can see that I'm talking about business a lot because I'm hoping you guys are business owners, but also this is ways that you stand out. I mean, authenticity is there's nobody that can tell your story or have your talent like you. And so it's this journey to find that. So all of this is authenticity. There's a great article if you guys are interested in personal values by Mark Manson. And my big conflict was in my business was I had conflicting values. I grew up with one set values, and then in my life, me personally, I had a different set. And so I personally had to redefine my definition of success based on my personal values. And as entrepreneur, I feel like there's a lot of spillover of business versus personal values. And when you can do that, you can have a lot more meaningful life. Um, I I had a tendency to compare myself with other people, and I thought I wanted to climb up the corporate ladder, but that was farthest from what was fulfilling to me. And I would always wonder why I would be sabotaging myself, but there was something in me that kept on feeling like I had to do it. And so really kind of figuring out your authentic values, I think, is one of the most important things in living a fulfilling life, and figuring out the misalignment in it. And like I said, creating your own definition of success based on your core values, and creating a business that reflects your values, and making it an part of your operations. So your strengths are part of how you operate. Your values show how you operate. So there's a lot of wisdom and insight into this that can give you ideas for your business. So I just want to give over a real quick recap of this. So A is for archetype. This is your persona. The challenge here is that it's our perception. There's a lot of masks that we wear that we've accumulated through life. Um, you could have been a natural explorer as a kid, and your mom is it's just doesn't let you do anything. So we have a lot of social conditioning. There's a lot of masks, and and that's why these some of these clues and things that inspire you are good to try on. And I feel like authenticity is something that you try and experiment and see how it feels. It's not I'm authentic or I'm not. So your archetype, your persona, you want to give the same, you want to, like, what the impression you want to give people should be the impression that they get, because if it isn't, then there's a miscommunication there. U is for universal theme. So this is a universal theme of your business. And when you can tell the story, you and have that point in the story, you have a lot of great focus for your content, for your marketing, for every piece of material that you put out. Um, in your stories, you embed your values, and they talk about your character and your journey. And so all of these are just clues to help you um, put together the authentic business that you have, or the authentic brand, or the authentic life. And talent, we talked about that, your innate gifts. That is something that, as kids, that's we have that as kids. And sometimes if we were kids and we weren't allowed to explore and figure that out, it's harder to as adults. So it's always good to have this play mindset to experiment with things. H is for honor, and really honoring what is most valuable to your life. So authenticity here. This is this image that kind of like a Bansky image, but it just makes me feel like authenticity is this thing that we reach for that we don't ever feel like we get, and that's okay. And the whole thing is that we try and we experiment and we see what fits. I mean, it takes a while to find a good dress, right? Like a girl needs to try on a few dresses to see what fits right. So, anyways, I that's all I have. I feel like we need to be gentler and kinder to people as they find their way, and and always be on this journey. So that's it. That's all I have. If you guys have any questions, you can email me. I have more content on it. I know I went pretty fast. So on to you.
All right. Yeah. If you have questions, you can actually just stick them in the chat and we can make some time at the end here to pick those up. So, right. Well, let's move on. So once you've gotten this sense of your authenticity code and who you are, now we want to talk about showing up. So I'm going to spend the next 10 or 15 minutes talking about ways that you can be presenting yourself in a very unique and distinctive way. But I also want to remove a lot of the friction because people have a lot of roadblocks to being able to show up and to literally allow themselves to show up as themselves. And this is a really big part of the work that I do when I'm working with my clients and helping them, be genuine, even though they're doing something frightening, like staring straight at a camera lens and trying to communicate their message. So the goal here is, of course, you want to be connecting on a much deeper level with the people who you're talking to. So I've got a few things I want to bring up here. I don't have slides, but I have these single word prompts. So connection, like when people talk about connection, the thing about it is that connecting as humans, this is the thing that actually gives us the most purpose and meaning to our lives. But when you ask people about connection and say, okay, well, what about that? If they tell stories about their connecting, usually they're talking about disconnection. And they're thinking things like, is there something about me that if other people see me as I am, that I won't be actually worthy of making the connection? And there's this huge fear around connecting. And this is when we talk about, getting up on stage or spreading our message online or any of the ways that we do, going to a meeting and speaking with our colleagues, we tend to hold ourselves back. And the older we get, the more we do that. And this is the part that I want to try and bust through with what I'm sharing with you today. So whatever it is for you, and you can put these in the chat, like one of the things that comes up for me is like this question of, well, who do you think you are? Who do I think I am to get on camera and talk to people and say anything? Like that whole thing, like in Australia, they have an expression that is tall poppy. And you don't want to be the tall poppy. Like, it's a slang term that is very derogatory against a person who's basically trying to show off or trying to be better than everyone else around them. And they look at that person and go, oh, that person's just a tall poppy. And I think it's a fairly universal theme that we don't want to be that person. We don't want to be that person who actually does stand out. And so we hold ourselves back and we end up not being very distinctive and not showing who we are. And as a result, we never actually do make the connection that we're seeking. So, Brené Brown talks about this, and she, as well as being this very successful author and very successful speaker, you can see her TED Talk, she is basically a researcher, and she's done a lot of research with people who have succeeded by making connection. And what she learned in her research is that those folks who were able to do it, they have this strong sense of love and belonging of themselves. Like they believe that they are worthy of love and belonging, and thus they are able to make a connection because they feel they are worthy of connection. So this is an inside job here. I mean, the first step in all of this, you start figuring out, well, who am I? What is my authenticity code? And move it to, and I am worthy of connecting. This is the thing. And this takes courage. And it was really interesting. Eva shared the slide with Cinderella. And, there's a great scene at the end of the most recent Cinderella film. And I know this because I have a daughter. And because of my daughter, I've seen a lot of Disney movies. And I don't know if any of you have daughters, but you will end up watching lots of princess stuff. And anyway, at the end of this scene, Cinderella's in this place where she literally starts to, she has to show up as herself. And, she's been literally hiding in the closet. The prince has arrived at the house talking to her stepmother and her stepsisters and looking for the person who can fit the glass slipper. And now Cinderella has to come out and show herself as the person who she really is, which is totally different because she's been kind of a fraud. She went to the palace ball as something who she wasn't. And now she has to reveal to the prince that, number one, she deceived him. And number two, will he love me and find me worthy when he finds out that this is actually all I am? And so in this scene, she catches her reflection in a mirror, and the narration voice, which is basically the voice of her mother, saying, have courage and be kind. And in this context, I just want you to take that down, like write this down. Have courage and be kind to yourself. Because when you are showing up, you're going to need a certain kind of courage to be worthy of the connection that you're seeking. And you want to be kind to yourself because when you do this, when you step up to the plate, you will have missteps. You will have things that go wrong. You will have things that make you feel cringy and you feel like a rabbit that wants to jump down into a hole. And that is okay. It's normal. It's actually human. And there's a couple things to think about. One is that there's two effects that affect us psychologically. One of them is the pratfall effect. And the pratfall effect is people find you more relatable when you slip up. So if you are less than perfect, if you are less than professional, if you are less than whatever it is that you were trying to be, and you do something that's a mistake, that is a sign. People will actually relate to that and they go, oh, you're a human being. I would have made that mistake. That's the kind of thing that I would do. And they will relate to you more. So, people in studies have been shown a film of some guy who's like doing stuff super perfectly and, really getting all the right answers on a test and that kind of thing. And the people who watch that film go, well, this guy's too perfect. I don't really connect with him. But when they show that same footage, only at the end, the guy spills coffee in his lap, the people who watch that version rated this person as much more likable. And so this is something that you can give yourself a break, that if you show up and you do something that's not quite the way you planned and you mess up in some way, well, actually people will find you more likable and more human and more relatable. And so that can be part of your authenticity. The other thing that I want to point out is there's this thing called the spotlight effect, which is almost the opposite, which is that when we do something, especially when we do something online or even when you're up on a stage somewhere, we think that there's more people paying attention to us than actually are. And this is especially true when you're posting content. We think that if we post this piece of content, 1 million people are going to see it. And if it's not the right thing, or it's not the right message, or if I do something really goofy and it's cringeworthy and it's going to go out there and live on forever on the internet and I'm never going to be able to live it down, well, actually, not so much. You should be so lucky that 1 million people see it, which probably won't happen. I mean, you'll be lucky if 3 or 4 people see it, at least when you're first getting started. So the spotlight effect is the thing where you're not as visible as you thought you might have been. And it's okay. Like it's okay. And the work is, in fact, trying to become more visible and being okay with that visibility, that level of visibility. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about how you can express yourself. Like, okay, so we're going to get ourselves to a place where we're feeling like we're ready to go here. And when it comes to that expression, we're going to talk about specifically doing it on video. And when you look at, well, why should we even think about doing something on video? Right now, in this world that we live in, we've just come out of the pandemic period. And one of the things that the pandemic period did for us is that it pretty much forced everyone to get on camera. So whether you ever had any ambition of being on camera, of talking to people through a lens, you now have done it, because the only way to meet with someone over the last 2.5, 3 years is to get on Zoom and have a Zoom call, or to join a webinar like we're doing right now. And this has created a new normal where communicating via video is the normal way to meet and talk and connect with people. And of course, once you do that and you're connected to the internet, this is something that can enable you to do this at scale and to do this with large numbers of people. So, and then when you look at the social media sites, what's happening on social media is that TikTok has shown that video in the form of short videos, really short form videos, has become very popular. In fact, it's become the most popular way that people are consuming content. And it's so popular that all of the other social media sites have looked at TikTok and said, oh, we need to catch up, because they're doing all these short form videos and they're kind of taking over the social media world, and we need to compete with that. So now, Facebook and Instagram have Reels, and YouTube has Shorts. And even on a platform like LinkedIn, short form video there works extremely well. And great news, because a short video that only lasts a minute is really easy to create. And for the people who you want to talk to, it's very easy to consume. And this is also part of the new normal. It's the part of the piece that, we can now create content easily. And it's the content that is the content of choice. And bonus, you're getting this face-to-face connection with your ideal prospects, your ideal clients, the ideal people who you're actually wanting to make connection with. And of course, doing this, like being able to show up as the human on camera, people will see your personality, they'll see your quirks, they'll see your slip-ups when you do pratfalls, and you will become more personable and more likable. And when you compare yourself to, say, a large brand or any large company or large competitor, the interesting thing there is that the larger the brand and the larger the competitor, the less likely they are to show off their humanity. And so as a single solopreneur, big advantage, you can just be yourself and be a human being. And a lot of your competitors aren't going to do that. In fact, a lot of your competitors are going to be stuck way back at the beginning, where they're thinking, I am not worthy of showing up. And, so great, you can step out and do this. So I just have a couple more things to talk about. I want to talk about, well, how do you actually connect in a way that's trust building? And then I want to get to just moving the friction out of the way, because when it comes to making video, people feel it's really super daunting. And how do we even do this in a way that isn't going to drive me crazy? So I want you to think about, when people go online, where do they go? What are the places that they hang out? And why do they come back to those places? And the answer is that they go to places that they find familiar. And until you become one of those places, until you are one of the familiar things, or in this case, one of the familiar faces, people aren't going to be paying much attention to you, and people aren't going to be, you're not going to be able to build trust with them. So, how do you do that? And people look at this and they go, well, this is going to be hard. It's going to take a long time to build a familiarity where people trust me and my brand enough to start spending time with me. And I just want to point out that it's not as hard as you think. In fact, it can happen rather quickly. And there's something that happened with me recently when I was flying out to a 3-day conference. And this incident showed me really clearly that familiarity comes just like that in the right moment. So what happened was, I was flying to this conference, and on the flight down, when I was, sitting there next to the other passenger, stranger next to me, this was a young woman, and I'd never, seen her before. And she was sitting there with an iPad and earbuds, and the whole flight down, she completely ignored me, which there's nothing unusual about that. This is the way most people treat you on a plane. They just ignore you. They pretend you're not there. But the thing that was really weird and kind of coincidental was that after the 3-day event, and I got on the plane to fly back to Boston, when I got to my seat and sat down, the same woman was sitting there. And when I got to the seat this time, she looked up, our eyes met, and we kind of started laughing. And, and then we started talking. And I learned all these things about her. She'd been down visiting her sister, and she was coming back. She was a student here in Boston, and she was studying accounting. And we had this fairly long conversation, which was a totally different thing and experience from when I'd seen her before. And why that had happened, like why she had been able to open up and be friendly and be conversational with me, was that I had become a familiar face. And in fact, in the context of the airplane and all of the other passengers on the plane, who were a bunch of strangers, I was the only familiar face on the entire plane. And so if you apply this to like what you can do, if you show up, let's say on LinkedIn, and you're one of the few people who's making video talking about the thing that you talk about on LinkedIn, whatever that is, and you show up on day 1, and then you show up on day 2, and you show up on day 3, and after 3 or 4 days go by, there's going to be people who will see you more than once. And by the time they've seen you the second or third time, you will become a familiar face. Say, oh yeah, I've seen you before. And you're the person who talks about this thing. And if that thing is something that they resonate with, and if there's something about you that they find relatable, they're going to start coming back for more. And you are going to be that one of those familiar places that they start to pay attention to. And you are now building trust with them. And this can happen remarkably quickly. All right, so one last thing, I'm going to talk about how you actually start to create video and start creating your messaging on video. And again, this can happen easily. It doesn't have to be this giant production. You don't necessarily need to go out and get anything. And mainly what I want to talk about is removing the friction that stands in the way. So if you have been thinking that, well, it's going to take a lot of time, I have to get a lot of gear, it's going to be daunting, what about the editing, et cetera, et cetera. Don't worry about that. We're going to fix that right now. So instead of thinking about making video as like an extra thing to do, like I have to go sit somewhere and put my camera up and think about what I'm going to talk about, try and make video when it fits with stuff you're already doing. So for example, when you're meeting with a client, or when you're doing your workshop, or you're holding a class, or whatever it is that you do, maybe you're on a guest on a podcast, anything that you're doing like that, where you're already engaging with people and you're doing it in the new normal, which means that you're doing it virtually on camera, record yourself. Record yourself doing the thing that you do, the thing that you sort of is central to your expertise and will be core to who you are and your values and your principles. And just do that. And now you're going to have a bunch of footage which shows you in your very best light and at the height of your authority doing the thing that you know best. And it doesn't take any extra work to do this. It's just a matter of recording yourself when you're already on camera doing something, when you're already on camera in some kind of meeting space. And then you can take that footage, you can hand it off to somebody who knows how to do editing really well. Don't do this yourself. Don't even think about doing it yourself, and get an editor to cut it up into little short 1-minute clips. And then you can have that posted and scheduled. And then you have all the content. You're going to have all the content that you could possibly have just from taking that step. And beyond that, if you want to take one more step, you can think about any time your light bulb goes off and you have some sort of spontaneous inspiration to do, something, to say something. You can also like simply pull out your phone, hit record, and speak into your phone. And this can be, if you're out on a run, or if you're, coming out of your workout, or if you're making breakfast in the morning, or if you're out with your colleagues, or right after a meeting with a client and the client asked you a question and you go, wow, that would make good content. Well, as soon as that meeting's over, pull out your phone and answer the question. These are really simple things that you can do in the moment. And the cool thing is that if you do it in the moment when you are feeling spontaneous, there will be a certain kind of energy that you can bring right then in the moment while you're feeling the energy. And if you're saying these things while you're feeling the energy, that will be part of your authenticity code. So that is all I have for you. And I'm going to bring, I'm going to bring Eva back on here. Let's hit the right button here. There we are. Ta-da. And as we wrap up, if you've got questions, stick them in the comments and we have time to respond to your questions. I will say a couple things, that there will be a replay. So the same link here on YouTube that brings you here, this video is going to live on YouTube until, I don't know what, like the future, like until YouTube is no more, which will probably never happen. It'll be here forever. So if you want to come back and review any of this material, or if you came in late, you can always catch the replay. Or if you have a friend who wants to be more authentic, you can tell them about it and they can watch the replay. And if you're inspired by the things that I just said, and you're saying, okay, I want to try this out, and you would like to get a bunch of never-ending prompts for ways to talk on video, I have a lead magnet which I can share with you. It's basically never-ending ideas for making video, and it's just a set of prompts that you can have. And you go to 40videoideas.com and you can download that and use that. It's something that you can use and reuse forever. All right. So I'm just glancing at the chat here. I don't see any questions. Shepard says, authenticity to me is allowing people to see your purpose, the focus of your business, and your goals, giving your audience true exposure. Yeah, for sure. Great insight.
Oh, does anybody have any questions about the archetypes or your story theme? Do you see how that might fit into your business? I would love to know if that was helpful. I don't know if people are, let's see. And any insights on the word authenticity now? What about you, Brad? What do you think?
Well, it's interesting, in the group that we're both in, when we were talking with them, there was a lot of pretty strong reaction to the word and the term authenticity and how it's used. And I see authenticity as a bit of dilemma in terms of when we're trying to be authentic, just the act of trying to be authentic makes us inauthentic. Like it's this thing where it's out there and it's going, okay, now I'm going to show, like I'm going to turn on my authenticity switch and now I'm going to be real. And of course, a lot of what we do, pretty much everything we do when we go out and interact with other people is quite performative. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's inauthentic, but there's a certain performance element. And then of course, when you're doing stuff like presenting or posting on social media or making a video or anytime like you show up at a meeting with a group of people, what you're doing there is performative. Everything from like how you're wearing your hair, and if if I put on a blue shirt today, and the car I drive because I want to look cool, and the food I eat because I want to be healthy, and on and on. Like everything we do is tied to the kind of image that we want to create in the world. And that image that we want to create in the world is somewhat performative, even if we know our true values. Like I really believe that this is part of me, and I'm an adventurer, and I'm an innovator, and I'm those things. Well, when I'm sharing the innovative part of myself, some of that is performative. And when, like, I'm talking right now and I'm bringing energy to the way that I speak, there's an element of that which is performative. So what's really authentic? Like, when do we get in the moment of like, oh, now that was authentic. That was really, really me. And it's a very elusive thing to try and grab onto. Like, as soon as you grab onto it and say, this is it, it slips away. So that's, it's a very interesting thing. However, having said all that, I also think it's super possible to move in the direction of authenticity. Like, you can definitely move there, and there's all kinds of things that are definitely like not authentic. And what we see a lot with, say, I don't know, Instagram influencers who are, have the perfect image all the time. And you always see them looking great, and you always see them laying on the beach in some tropical place and all that's and driving a beautiful, brand new, expensive vehicle and so on and so forth. None of that is very real. And so show off your 10-year-old Toyota.
Yeah. Well, I think what's key for business is knowing what your customers are seeking, if they need support or structure. And that's part of the archetype mix. I think the archetypes are a valuable tool because they are connected to goals, in terms of building a connection or helping people see a better way of idealized state of the world. So I think that is valuable, and the universal theme definitely. So I would love to get feedback. You guys can email me if you have any questions about it, because those are actually 4 huge topics that I covered in a very short time. So I would love to get feedback. What did you think, Brad? Brad didn't get to see all of it. I think he might have been like, wow, this is like maybe too much for half an hour. Or authenticity is the fleeting thing, but I think there's ways to move towards it.
Yeah,
And
for sure. Well, I'm just pulling up a question from Shepard. He was saying, what tips do you have for addressing an investor donor audience? Because he's into doing grant proposals for funding his program.
For the donor audience, is the donor audience a corporation or is it a person? Is it a corporate entity? Or because the thing with the nonprofit is that it's 2 different audiences. Because you have the audience that you're serving, and then fundraising if it's corporate. So it would depend on. But I think what you're doing is tying it to your purpose, and all that is great. It's more just about your persona, how your voice, your archetype is your voice. So how would you write it? Or are you going to be like very enthusiastic, or or are you going to be like a hero about it? That voice comes through in your communications, and that gives color to your words. So knowing your archetype can give a lot of clues to your visual and verbal communication. So it doesn't sound so bland. I hope that makes sense. And then, so whatever you do, it's just, and then the values that you're wanting, that make you do what you want to do, your why. So being able to communicate that is great.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I think we're getting to the time where we just want to call it a wrap.
Yes.
I want to thank everyone for coming And as I said before, the replay is going to be right here, the same location on YouTube. I'll be sending out an email to all the attendees reminding you that the replay is here. And just once again here, if you want to grab this endless video ideas, just go to 40videoideas.com and you can get a hold of that. It's a PDF, and I would love it if you made a video inspired from this event. Wherever you post it, tag me so that I can see it. That would be awesome. And thanks so much, Eva. This is great. And let us go off and be more authentic.
All right. I love to hear you guys' feedback. You have my email. Let me know. And if, oh yeah, so if you have questions about your archetype, I have an archetype guide. I have a story guide also to help you figure out what that is in your business. All right, guys.
So long.
We'll see you later. Goodbye.